Dark Family Secret, a shocking story of abuse and revenge. Imagine a story that starts with a reunion and ends in absolute tragedy. A tale so twisted that it'll make you question everything you know about family, trust, and the darkest corners of human relationships. This isn't just another story you'll scroll past. This is a real-life narrative that will leave you stunned, shocked, and wanting to hear every single detail. If you love deep dive stories that reveal the most unbelievable human experiences, then buckle up. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. Smash that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Your support helps these incredible stories reach more people who are hungry for truth and understanding. Every upvote and comment means the world and keeps these intense narratives alive, ready to unravel a story that seems too bizarre to be real. Let's begin. In the intricate tapestry of human relationships, some stories defy comprehension, challenging our fundamental understanding of trust, love, and familial bonds. The tale of Stephen and Katie Platel is one such narrative, a haunting exploration of how seemingly innocent connections can unravel into a web of moral complexity and devastating consequences. What begins as a potential story of familial reunion quickly descends into a chilling examination of hidden truths and forbidden relationships. The Platel family's saga serves as a stark reminder that behind the veneer of normalcy, deeply disturbing dynamics can flourish, unseen and unacknowledged by the outside world. On April 12, 2018, an ordinary day transformed into a nightmare that would forever alter the trajectories of multiple lives. Stephen and Katie Platel found themselves at the epicenter of a series of events so profound and shocking that they would challenge societal understanding of familial boundaries and interpersonal ethics. The intricate layers of their relationship revealed a forbidden narrative that had been carefully concealed, maintaining a delicate facade of normalcy. Their story was not merely about individual choices, but represented a broader, more unsettling exploration of how personal decisions can cascade into catastrophic outcomes, affecting not just individuals but entire familial and social ecosystems. Stephen Platel's background seemed unremarkable at first glance, a man from New York with a relatively ordinary upbringing. However, the seeds of complexity were sown early in his life, particularly during his tumultuous young adulthood, when pivotal decisions would set the stage for future moral transgressions. In 1995, at the age of 20, Stephen's life took a significant turn when he encountered Alyssa Garcia, a 15-year-old girl, through online interactions. Despite the substantial age difference, they quickly developed a connection that would become the first thread in a complex and deeply problematic relational tapestry. A relationship that would challenge legal and ethical boundaries and foreshadow the more intricate dynamics yet to unfold. Stephen's manipulative grooming of Alyssa was a calculated process that exploited her youth and vulnerability. Carefully constructing a relationship hidden from her family and social circle, he went to extraordinary lengths, traveling from New York to Texas to pursue his predatory intentions. His calculated approach culminated in Alyssa's complete detachment from her support system, leaving behind everything she knew, blinded by a distorted perception of love. In 1998, a child named Denise was born, the product of this deeply inappropriate relationship. From her earliest moments, Denise's life was marked by trauma, with Stephen demonstrating alarming behavioral patterns that pointed to a profound capacity for cruelty. What should have been a period of nurturing and protection became instead a landscape of faced with the unimaginable horror of her daughter's circumstances. Alyssa made an agonizing decision. Recognizing the immediate and long-term danger Stephen posed, she chose to relinquish her parental rights. This was not an act of abandonment, but a profound maternal sacrifice, a desperate attempt to provide her daughter with a chance at survival and a life free from the cycle of abuse she had experienced. The Fusco family would become Denise's salvation, adopting her and renaming her Katie. They represented hope, a beacon of normalcy and love in a childhood that had been defined by darkness. This adoption marked a critical turning point, offering Katie a potential escape from the generational trauma that had threatened to consume her from birth. The Fusco family had provided Katie with the compassionate and stable environment she needed, nurturing her growth with unconditional love and support. Throughout her childhood, she remained blissfully unaware of the tumultuous history that connected her to her biological parents, a past marked by complexity and hidden trauma. Meanwhile, Alyssa and Stephen's relationship continued its turbulent trajectory, culminating in their marriage in 2006 after relocating to Richmond, Virginia. In 2016, as an adult, Katie found herself consumed by an increasingly powerful desire to uncover her biological roots. Curiosity and a profound longing for understanding propelled her on a journey of discovery. Leveraging the connectivity of social media, she successfully established contact with Alyssa, her biological mother. Her initial message was a delicate blend of excitement, hope, and nervous anticipation, a digital bridge spanning years of separation. Alyssa's response was immediate and overwhelming. For years, she had been silently searching, hoping for this very moment of reconnection. Their online communications gradually evolved, building a tentative relationship founded on mutual. The psychological grooming was now complete. Alyssa observed with mounting horror the striking physical similarities between Katie and her younger self, a haunting reflection of her own past trauma recreating itself before her eyes. The dynamic between Stephen and Katie had become so disturbingly intertwined that when Alyssa finally confronted them, the resulting argument ended with Stephen and Katie dramatically leaving the house together. Their united front, a testament to the depth of their inappropriate connection. In November 2016, Alyssa made the courageous decision to leave Stephen, taking her 2 younger daughters and filing for divorce. This separation effectively left Stephen and Katie alone, creating an unrestricted environment where their most destructive impulses could flourish without external interference or moral constraints. The true horror of the situation was revealed in May 2017 when Alyssa discovered her 11-year-old daughter's journal. The entries were a nightmare made tangible, documenting the sexual relationship between Stephen and Katie, revealing Katie's pregnancy, and detailing the disturbing familial reconfigurations. The children were instructed to refer to Katie as their stepmother, a grotesque manipulation of familial roles that defied all natural understanding of family dynamics. When confronted, Stephen's response was perhaps the most chilling aspect of this tragic narrative. He admitted to being head over heels in love with Katie, expressing that their biological relationship was inconsequential compared to his overwhelming emotional and sexual desire. Alyssa, faced with this horrifying revelation, immediately contacted law enforcement to report the incestuous relationship, a final act of maternal protection in a situation that had spiraled beyond comprehension. Despite the ongoing criminal investigation, Stephen and Katie pursued a path of desperate legitimacy. On July 20th, 2017, they formalized their relationship through marriage in Maryland, deliberately falsifying their marriage documents to conceal their biological connection. Their wedding was a surreal event attended by Stephen's mother and Katie's adoptive parents, individuals who were fully aware of the situation's profound moral complexity, but felt paralyzed by their inability to meaningfully intervene. In September 2017, the couple welcomed their son, Bennett Kieran Paddle, and subsequently relocated to a house in Knightdale, North Carolina. Their move represented a misguided attempt to establish a semblance of normalcy, hoping that geographical distance might somehow mitigate the systemic dysfunction of their relationship. However, their fragile facade of domestic tranquility was rapidly dismantled when, in January 2018, both Stephen and Katie were arrested and charged with incest, a legal reckoning that would dramatically alter their trajectories. Following their arrest, the legal system imposed strict conditions. While released on bond, they were explicitly ordered to maintain no contact with each other. Custody of their infant son, Bennett, was granted to Stephen's mother, effectively separating the couple and their child. Katie returned to the protective environment of her adoptive parents, Tony and Kelly Fusco, making a tentative phone call to Stephen to communicate her intention to terminate their relationship. The judicial separation initially forced significant geographical distance between them. Katie was mandated to return to New York, while Stephen was restricted to living in a hotel room in Virginia. This enforced separation seemed to offer a potential pathway to resolution. However, on March 16, 2018, the court restrictions were lifted, allowing Stephen to return to his home in North Carolina. Katie's growing awareness of the manipulation that had defined her relationship with Stephen marked a critical point of psychological liberation. Her decision to break free represented more than a simple separation. It was a profound act of self-reclamation. However, this moment of personal emancipation triggered a catastrophic response in Stephen. whose entire psychological framework was built on control and possession. When Katie communicated her intention to end their relationship, Stephen's reaction was immediate and violent, a volcanic eruption of rage that transformed his already fractured mental state into something far more dangerous. The psychological underpinnings of Stephen's response were complex and deeply disturbing. Rooted in a toxic mixture of anger, jealousy, and a desperate need for absolute control, his reaction was predictable to those who understood his history of violent and unpredictable behavior. Psychological research consistently demonstrates that individuals with a history of manipulation and abuse often respond to perceived abandonment with extreme retaliatory aggression. For Stephen, Katie's decision was not merely a rejection, it was an existential threat to the power dynamic he had meticulously constructed over years of systematic grooming. Revenge became Stephen's driving psychological mechanism. Extensive psychological studies reveal that individuals experiencing intense emotional pain often seek to restore their perceived sense of power through retaliatory actions. In Stephen's distorted worldview, Katie's departure represented a complete dismantling of the control he had exercised for years. The prospect of her moving forward, potentially healing and rebuilding her life, was utterly intolerable to him. His mind began to construct a narrative of revenge that would ultimately lead to an unspeakable act of violence. On the evening of April 11, 2018, the tragic sequence of events began to unfold. Around 7 p.m., Stephen contacted his mother, Grace, with what appeared to be a seemingly innocuous plan. He claimed he was going to pick up his 7-month-old son, Bennett, ostensibly to take him to New York so Katie could care for him while they awaited trial for their incest charges. This conversation masked the brewing psychological storm that would soon erupt into unimaginable horror. However, Stephen's plan quickly deviated from its apparent normalcy. Instead of proceeding to New York, he returned to his home in Knightdale, North Carolina. In a moment that defies comprehension, he committed an act of violence that would shock even the most hardened observers, murdering his own infant son. The details surrounding Bennett's death remain partially obscured to protect the child's memory, but forensic reports indicated a deliberate and brutal method of killing, suggesting a calculated act of destruction rather than a momentary loss of control. The aftermath revealed the full extent of Stephen's psychological breakdown. After committing the unthinkable, he concealed Bennett's body in a closet, a chilling action that spoke volumes about his mental state. This was not merely an act of violence, but a calculated attempt to control the narrative, to eliminate the evidence of his own destructive impulses. The concealment of the body represented the final, horrifying manifestation of the manipulation and control that had defined Stephen's entire existence. The events of April 11th marked the beginning of a horror. After committing the double murder, Stephen fled the scene in a psychological maelstrom. The initial adrenaline of his violent actions quickly gave way to a more complex emotional landscape, a turbulent mixture of rage, despair, and an emerging sense of guilt. The reality of his actions began to crystallize, transforming from a moment of explosive violence to a comprehension of the irreversible destruction he had caused. The confession to his mother revealed the depth of Stephen's psychological disintegration. He described in graphic detail the murders he had committed, including the tragic fate of Bennett. Grace's statement to the dispatcher, "He killed his wife, he killed her father, and I can't even believe this is happening," captured the absolute horror of the situation. It was a moment that transformed a family's private tragedy into a public nightmare of unimaginable proportions. Driving to Dover, New York, Stephen found a secluded area to park his minivan. The weight of his actions pressed down on him with overwhelming intensity. The geographical distance could not separate him from the consequences of his violent spree. Each mile traveled was a journey deeper into the realization of the irreparable damage he had caused, the lives he had extinguished, the familial bonds he had destroyed, and the complete moral collapse he had engineered. In a final act of desperation and perhaps a twisted form of surrender, Stephen made the ultimate choice. Parking in a secluded area in Dover, New York, he retrieved a firearm and ended his own life. It was a conclusive moment that brought a devastating end to a cycle of manipulation, violence, and psychological destruction. The tragic narrative came to a close, leaving behind a wake of grief, trauma, and unanswered questions about how such a catastrophic series of events could have unfolded. The self-inflicted gunshot wound marked the devastating conclusion to a nightmare that had been brewing for years. Stephen Paddle's final act was a punctuation mark on a story of manipulation, abuse, and unimaginable violence, leaving behind a community struggling to comprehend the depths of familial destruction that had unfolded before their eyes. The lives of Katie, Anthony, and Bennett became a haunting testament to the catastrophic consequences of unchecked psychological abuse and systemic oversight. Investigators from the Knightdale Police Department and the New Milford Police Department began a meticulous process of reconstructing the events that led to this tragedy. Their collaborative effort aimed to understand not just the immediate actions, but the complex web of circumstances that had enabled such a horrific sequence of events to occur. The investigation would reveal a disturbing narrative of generational trauma, manipulation, and systemic failure. The first critical moment came during a welfare check at Stephen Paddle's Knightdale, North Carolina residence. Triggered by Grace Paddle's concerned call following a deeply troubling morning conversation, law enforcement made a chilling discovery. Hidden within a closet, they found the lifeless body of 7-month-old Bennett Platel, a silent victim of a violence so profound it defied comprehension. The circumstances surrounding the infant's death immediately suggested a deliberate and calculated act of violence. Simultaneously, the crime scene in New Milford told an equally horrifying story. Witnesses provided graphic accounts of the shooting, describing how Stephen's blue minivan had pulled alongside the pickup truck and how he had methodically opened fire with an AR-15-style rifle. Katie and her adoptive father, Anthony, were found dead in their vehicle, victims of a meticulously planned act of revenge that spoke to the deep psychological fractures within this family. Forensic analysis painted a comprehensive picture of the events. Ballistic evidence, witness statements, and the timeline of violence created a clear, albeit heartbreaking narrative. With Stephen Paddle deceased by suicide, traditional legal proceedings became impossible. However, the investigation unveiled a complex background of familial dynamics that had been brewing for years, a systemic failure that extended far beyond this single tragic day. Earlier in January 2018, Stephen and Katie had been arrested on multiple charges, including incest, adultery, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Their release on bail came with strict conditions prohibiting contact between them, conditions that had clearly proven inadequate to prevent the subsequent violence. The legal system's approach raised critical questions about risk assessment and protection of vulnerable individuals. Alyssa Platel, Stephen's ex-wife and Katie's biological mother, emerged as a powerful voice of criticism. Her statement cut to the heart of the systemic failures. If anyone is brought up on charges of incest, they should never be allowed near minor children. She highlighted a crucial oversight: the lack of comprehensive psychiatric evaluation for individuals facing such serious allegations. Her words became a stark reminder of the critical importance of mental health assessments in cases involving severe familial abuse and potential violence. As the investigation unfolded, the legal complexities of the case became increasingly apparent. Stephen's defense attorney, Rick Friedman, emphasized the unprecedented nature of the case, arguing that Stephen and Katie's relationship was consensual and challenging claims of manipulation. However, the evidence gathered revealed a deeply troubling pattern of control that had characterized Stephen's toxic relationships with both Katie and Alyssa. The absence of a trial meant that no formal legal resolution would be reached. With Stephen Platel's death, the case concluded in a tragic limbo, leaving many questions unanswered. The legal system had ultimately failed to prevent the horrific chain of events that led to multiple lives being lost, leaving a community in profound shock and disbelief. Alyssa Platel emerged as a powerful advocate in the wake of this tragedy. Grappling with her own complex emotions of guilt and sorrow, she dedicated herself to raising awareness about domestic violence and the intricate dynamics of family abuse. Her mission became clear: to help others recognize the subtle signs of manipulation and control that can destroy families from within. Social media and news platforms erupted with shock and outrage following the revelation of the case. Commentators and the public alike struggled to comprehend how such a devastating scenario could unfold. The narrative sparked intense discussions about systemic failures in protecting vulnerable individuals, with many questioning how abuse could escalate to such extreme violence. Alyssa Platel, Katie's biological mother, became a critical voice in understanding the broader implications of the case. Her testimony highlighted the urgent need for improved mental health evaluations and protective measures within family units. The case exposed critical gaps in how society identifies and intervenes in cases of potential family violence and psychological manipulation. The true crime series Sex, Lies, and Murder featured the Plateau case in an episode titled Murders in the Family. Through careful reenactments and in-depth interviews, the documentary explored the complex psychological dynamics that led to the tragic outcomes. It provided a chilling examination of how past traumas and manipulative behaviors can create devastating family cycles of abuse. Ultimately, the Stephen and Katie Platel case became more than just a criminal investigation. It transformed into a critical case study of family dysfunction, psychological manipulation, and systemic failure. It serves as a haunting reminder of the critical importance of recognizing abuse patterns, supporting vulnerable individuals, and breaking cycles of violence before they reach irreparable conclusions. The Stephen and Katie Platel case is more than just a shocking narrative. It's a profound warning about the intricate and dangerous dynamics of manipulation, abuse, and systemic failure. Their story reveals how deeply rooted psychological control can destroy lives across generations, showing how trauma can create devastating cycles of violence that seem almost incomprehensible. This case exposes the critical importance of recognizing early warning signs of abuse, understanding the complex psychology of manipulation, and creating robust support systems that can protect vulnerable individuals. It challenges us to look beyond surface-level family interactions and be more vigilant about the hidden patterns of control and psychological harm. Alyssa Platel's advocacy serves as a powerful reminder that speaking out, seeking help, and breaking silence can be transformative. Her courage in the face of unimaginable tragedy demonstrates the potential for healing and prevention. If this story has touched you, if it has made you more aware of the subtle signs of abuse, then sharing becomes an act of prevention. Spread awareness, support survivors, and remember that understanding can be the first step towards protecting others. Thank you for listening to this heart-wrenching journey. If you found this story important, please share it, discuss it, and help create awareness. Your engagement can make a difference. Stay informed, stay compassionate, stay vigilant.